Dyson Daniels was recently announced as the NBA's most improved player. Over the offseason, he was part of a trade that saw him make his way from the New Orleans Pelicans to the Atlanta Hawks, with DeJounte Murray going the other way. At the time, this trade was met with a lot of scrutiny. Now, a year later, the Hawks are boasting the league's most improved player, a player that broke the 3 steals per game mark for the first time in 34 years, and the Pelicans are accidentally in a rebuild, again. If we just look at his counting stats from this season, he averaged 14.1 points, 5.9 rebounds, 4.4 assists, 3 steals, and 0.7 blocks on 49, 34, 59 splits in 34 minutes a night. The season prior, with the Pelicans, he averaged 5.8, 3.9, 2.7, 1.4, and 0.4 on 45, 31, 64 splits in 22 minutes. Rewind a few months before this season with the Pelicans, and he was playing with the Australian Boomers at the Basketball World Cup, averaging 2.5 minutes of game time, including 1 DNP. Fast forward a year and a half, and he's undeniable, doing it his own way. There's still a long way to go for Daniels in one regard more than others.
Gunner. The winner of my hip-hop bracket is Gunner.
Aside from admitting to an Atlanta crowd that he prefers Gunner to Outcast, he has the second lowest points per game this millennium for a George Mikan medalist, trailing only Boris Diaw, who averaged 13.3 points compared to Dyson's 14.1. For what it's worth, when Diaw won the award in 2006, league average score was 97 points per game, compared to 114 this past season. Even still, Daniels improved tremendously as an offensive player. Second in total points for the Hawks this year, he provided crucial scoring given his teammates' availability and the departure of DeAndre Hunter. He hit double digits in 60 of his 76 games this season, up from 13 a season ago. Last season, he recorded his career high for points in a game with 17. This season, he achieved that mark or better 25 times, with 12 of these games seeing him break the 20-point barrier. Barrier, you say?
And a steal by the great barrier thief on Draymond. Goes up.
He did this with a balanced diet of what you would expect from a Trae Young teammate, with threes and at the rim. Let's start with the threes, as this is still an area of improvement, but a great stride in the right direction. Before I throw a bunch of numbers at you, keep this one in mind to contextualize all of them. League average 3-point percentage this season was 36%. Daniels bumped his percentage up from 31 to 34 on much greater volume. Perhaps more promising is that he averaged over 1 3 made per game, even if that's 1.1, compared to 0.7 last season. This tracks him converting on a long ball in 70% of his games this season, compared to just half of them a year ago. More importantly, he did his job on the 3-ball this season. As a slightly below average 3-point shooter, it's more important that you hit the open ones so your opposition can't help off you. Daniels was 38.1% on wide open threes, compared to 31.8% last season. The impact of that jump changes the dynamic of his role in his team's offense and how his coach can game plan with him. He also finished a lot of layups and dunks and generated a lot of these for his team with his defense. If we apply the minimum 65 games played rule for NBA awards, Daniels ranked 8th in the league for percentage of points off turnovers and 2nd for starters behind only Christopher Michael Dunn, who averaged half as many points as Daniels. The Hawks as a team were top 10 in this category, as well as percentage of points on the fast break, so Daniels has been an engine for what this team wants to do. His impact on the defensive end of the floor this season cannot be overstated. The last person to average 3 or more steals per game was Alvin Robinson in the 1990-91 season. Funnily enough, Robinson's numbers across the board were eerily similar to Daniels' were this year, and Robinson was an all-star. But the bloody Great Barrier Thief, Blockadile Dundee, what a revelation this guy's been. How much fun to follow along with Daniels' development on the defensive end this season. He's been the most devastating defensive playmaker this season and doing it on the perimeter in a perimeter-centric NBA. He may not have won Defensive Player of the Year award, but he might be the most important defender in the league given the way the game is currently played. I don't think the Hawks realised what they had at the start of the season, and the consistency he brought to his steal numbers by the end of the season will allow them to further game plan their fast break into next season. There were only 3 games this season he didn't record a steal, and the previous occurrence of this aberration was in 2024. He could turn defense into offense for himself or for the rest of the team. These are massive momentum swings and coach killers. He can turn the game on its head and force the opposing coach to call a timeout. He doesn't just steal the ball which then eventuates in a score, he dictates the other team's decisions. He totally changes the pace and flow of the game off his sleight of hand. He's now one of the best defenders in the league and looks like he's going to be staying there. He's already improved greatly, obviously, and during his acceptance speech on Inside the NBA, he spoke on his goals for the rest of his career.
For me, it's going to be about, taking that next step next year and, setting new goals. I want to be an all-star in this league,
By my count, he's just had the best season by an Aussie in the NBA since either Ben Simmons' age 24 season or Ben Simmons' age 23 season, 4 and 5 years ago, respectively. Whichever season you choose is as good a guess as mine, but good news for Daniels, Simmons was an all-star in both. So what does he need to become an all-star? Firstly, if we look at all of the 2025 All-Stars, their 2-year growth from when they were age 22 saw their numbers jump up roughly 10% season on season. If we apply this rule to Daniels, then his per game numbers when he's 24 would be 17 points, 7 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 3.6 steals, which is unlikely even for him, and 0.9 blocks. From where I'm sitting, this stat line is stronger than those of Jalen Williams, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Alperen Şengün, and Pascal Siakam from this season, all of whom are All-Stars. What that simplicity misses, yet also suggests, is team success. The weakest performing regular season team on that list belongs to Pascal Siakam and the Indiana Pacers, a 50-win team. Side note, they couldn't have done that without Johnny Furphy, nullifying the diff.
The diff? The diff is what you're going with?
Unless the Atlanta Hawks mirror this hypothetical growth from Daniels, he probably doesn't have a chance on his current trajectory. And maybe that projection is too analytical and formulaic. As per the eye test, the most obvious part of Daniels' game that needs to continue to grow to elevate him to an all-star level player is the scoring. If the rest of his game were to remain as it were and he established himself as a 20-point per night scorer, this would force him into the all-star discussion. The most obvious place this scoring can come from is continued growth from beyond the arc. The second place is more opportunities, resulting in higher volume. And finally, and you probably thought this when I read out the numbers earlier, the free throw line. If we look at his numbers after the Hunter trade, we can begin to forecast a baseline for his opportunities. Daniels was already seeing an uptick in trips to the line, with this number being 2 per game. If he gets himself an extra trip to the line every second game, that bumps this number up to 3, and I don't think it's a lot to ask a player like him to improve his free throw percentage to 70%. If he did that, that's an extra point per game. A promising sign for Daniels and the Hawks is that after the Hunter trade, Daniels shot 37.5% from 3, with more attention on him. He also may have found more comfort in his role as the season progressed in his new situation. Also, in games where Daniels was active after the Hunter trade, the team had a 53% win rate as compared to 46% pre-trade. Not only was Daniels more efficient over this 30-game stretch to finish the season, it was translating to wins. If he averaged an extra 3-pointer made per game, bringing this up to 2.1 at a 37.5% clip, he would have to average 5.6 threes attempted per game, 2.5 more than this season. The Hawks ranked 3rd in the league for pace, and the inconsistency throughout the team's health meant the shot totals were spread throughout the team. Dyson, however, is captain reliable, and with an off-season to take stock of the team, it could be a good time for Snyder to invest in Daniels' offensive load. The team also ranked dead last in mid-range scoring with just 3.9% of their points coming from here, so it fits the shot profile and offensive identity. This bodes well for the modern Atlanta Hawks, the current NBA, Quinn Snyder and Trae Young. All of a sudden, with this and the free throw, you're over 18 points per game on 1 extra opportunity per quarter. This seems like manageable growth over the off-season. It might not net him an all-star selection next season, but it would set a foundation for the rest of his career and a realistic avenue to an all-star selection in 2 years' time. As for the playmaking, Daniels was 2nd on the Hawks for total assists this season, recording an assist in every game. He grew up playing the point guard, so the dependability here shouldn't come as a shock to anyone. After the Hunter trade, Daniels averaged 5.2 assists per game, with his season average before the trade sitting at 3.8. This number could continue to grow through mere experience and find its way over the 6 mark. It could also alleviate some of the pressure off Trae Young, which would pay dividends for the game plan. So where is he right now? He's a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year and a stable offensive option for a team whose main creator is Trae Young, someone who oscillates between 1st and 3rd for assists per game every year. Becoming an All-Star is a massive deal and a very strong goal for a player in Dyson's position. It's more than achievable given where he currently is, and having won a Most Improved Player award, it would suggest he has the capacity to become an All-Star in a few seasons' time.
I was surprised, I like Gunner. And
Having just turned 22, he's still developing into his prime condition. He stands to add a few kilos and increase his minutes per night. He's shown very promising signs early, and his nuance will continue to develop ahead of his years. Yes, it's a lofty goal, but one he has all the tools to achieve.